async await is not the only way that we can end up accessing the API. I'm going to comment out this code. And let's actually do it another way. So I'm going to use the fetch API. But since fetch is a promise, all promises have a method called then. And what you could end up doing with the then method is in the then method, you could end up putting in a callback function. So here's a callback function using the arrow syntax. And now what ends up happening here is what I get back is actually the response. So when this fetch API, this promise ends up getting resolved, assuming it gets resolved, I'll end up getting this response, and I can console.log the response. So I don't necessarily have to put this inside of an async function. I could end up calling then. Let's refresh this, and we'll see I've got a misspelling here probably. Put an S there. We'll see here's our response, which is what we saw before. So if I want to get my data, what I could end up doing is saying response.json, which is also a promise, and putting another then in here. And this is going to be my data. And I could go over here, and I could console log my data, and I'll see my products. And there are 6 products. So if I wanted to have the same result, I could go over here and put this code over here, and I would end up displaying my products. Now, there's something you could do that's a little bit easier with promises in the sense that instead of going in, one of the things with promises, instead of nesting your callbacks, which is what we're doing here, I could do something a little bit easier. I could turn this into a one-liner because what I could actually do here is I could say take the response and turn it into JSON, and I could put it then over here, and I'll get my data. So once you're in a promise chain, if you have another promise, you won't go into the next level of the promise chain until that promise gets satisfied. So here I've got one promise. When it's satisfied, I get the response. I've got another promise. When it's satisfied, I end up getting the data. And we could end up getting rid of this then and moving this over. And it reads a lot better. It reads in a really linear way. And I could even get rid of some of my parentheses over here. And this is going to end up working, hopefully, the same way. Let's just go over here. So here I've forgotten a brace. And this ends up working the same way. So again, these two things really pretty much have the same behavior. Await you need to use in a function that is async, or you could use promises and use then with these callback functions. But in the end, the critical part is that you're dealing with data that's asynchronous, and you have to handle it in a different way.